Hello everyone and welcome back to the Time Gaming. Tokens. Especially if you come from Battle Spirits, the token is actually a pretty fascinating way for Battle Spirit Saga to kind of implement the more complicated effects in Battle Spirits without their ruling package. As I've shown you earlier, they have started with green and white. The way the Endman token works is pretty much similar to how we do Bunshin in Battle Spirits, where you summon your top deck face down as the low cost spirit to kind of help you to rush your opponents. While the Mecha token in white, in a way, you can see it like how Arnold machines are really good with summoning stuff from the top of your deck, like with our beloved Grace Order and Bachman Nagil, which in Saga at this stage really helped them to keep their field populated. So at first, it does feel like they are trying to make these tokens kind of like exclusive for these two colors, until they are not. With Saga Satri incoming, they just introduced the Golem tokens, which is pretty reminiscent to how you would use Golem Craft in Battle Spirits. Yeah, the Golem token is a really strong vanilla, but we are not here to talk about the Golem token specifically, because the Golem token kind of got me thinking, what if we actually also implemented tokens in the remaining three colors? Because as we have established by now, we can kind of like draw a parallel between how the token works in Saga and a certain mechanic in Battle Spirits. So if we are talking about complicated effects, the first one that easily came to my mind would of course be the yellow one, since we have cards like the Grandwalker Aphrodite and the recently banned Haldo Keruberus. Both of these cards have some sort of mind control effects. Since Battle Spirits has course systems in that, you can see like how it can be complicated on like who does this course belongs to, how do you move the course, and it is an easy pick for me because I mostly play with yellow, but implementing it is another story altogether. So my initial design was to produce the token. You kind of destroy an opposing spirit with a specific status, and when the token is removed, you retain the mind control spirit. So while it can be a little bit complicated to track like which spirit was destroyed for the effects, it does give you an alternative in yellow to kind of remove a big threat while giving you a body to attack, to either chase for damage or go for a game. On the other side, since you need to destroy the opposing spirit to produce the tokens, it actually can give your opponent some kind of breathing room, since they can prevent it with either armor yellow, destruction protection effect, or by using substitution effect. Additionally, since you need to summon the spirit back when the token is removed, there is another layer where you kind of need to take note of their when destroyed and when summoned effects to make sure that you actually get benefit from summoning the Puppet token. The token then will have enough status to kind of tank most destruction effects, but it also gives an incentive for your opponent to kind of destroy the token, so you can kind of think of it as a way to protect your more important spirits. And not to mention that the spirit will be summoned exhausted, so most of the time it will still be less of a threat for you since you have one less blocker to think about. For purple, teaming wise, I am kind of tempted to give it to Nightling since they are vampires, and vampire bite stuff and make things they're familiar. But instead, I tend to get my inspiration from the purple keyword, Poison Blade. Although the concept of Poison Blade is to slowly give your opponent a disadvantage by giving them extra effects when they have the Poison Blade in their spirits. We can take a more direct approach here by summoning the token instead to their own field, so replacing their useful spirits with an essentially vanilla spirits that can actually benefit you. So as a threat removal, it will be pretty much more permanent than the puppet tokens. But again, the point is to kind of remove the opposing spirit that has either useful effects or high PP and replace them with still a pretty strong vanilla that is essentially berserk. And it will still require some effort for you to destroy it if you are not playing purple. Thematically, it also kind of fits purple with the theme of occult and curses going on. And speaking of curse, you might see this sneaky little effect that forces the token to block even if it is exhausted. And yes, it is there so you can continuously ram your Camelot Knight with Blood Curse before your opponent actually realize that they are actually and we finally reached the inevitable red. Red generally is the color that is supposed to be the simplest in terms of mechanics. So among the recurring mechanics that have not been implemented in PSS, I don't really find anything that is interesting enough to implement here until you go back to Bunshin and realize that there is a red Bunshin card that actually came from another Bandai game that I actually kind of also like, Xenonzard. If you had the opportunity to play Xenonzard in the past, you probably came across the Golem aggro deck that relies on creating token Golem as. Well, at this point, we have not departed from the initial design that it will be pretty much like the Endman token, but in Xenonzard you can actually upgrade your token Golem S into token Golem M. So the thing that I will introduce here is a multi-stage token, where you start by summoning the small... Alright, Golem in BS is a blue thing. Okay, let's say Mini Mecha Dragon token. Then we can have effects that specifically destroys your Mini Mecha Dragon token and essentially turning them into Mecha Dragon tokens. While Xenons are kind of stopped before the token grew even larger, can actually kind of scale this further and make the token more and more suitable for the stage of the game where they are summoned. And we are finally done. Just now we tried to explore like how the tokens will work in the remaining 3 colors, how if they actually have effects instead of being a vanilla, and what if they can be upgraded mid-game. Of course, there are still more room for us to explore, even in the color that already has tokens. And as you can probably tell, these tokens are still in the early design and have not been tested yet. But what do you think? Are there any of these tokens that you actually want to try out? If you do, is there anything you want to change? Or do you have your ideas for your own tokens? Do leave them in the comments below. That has been everything from me, Theodore Lu, your host, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye!